Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first virtual Riverinos discussion meeting. I am joined by Sherry Schuster and Shannon Wood. Shannon is a new addition to Rocky River Public Library, and we're super excited that our newest addition is also a true crime fan. So we're here to explain to you how our discussion group works. We've made a couple changes, and we're kind of shifting gears from strictly a book club to more of a case discussion group. So today we're going to talk about the Israel Keys case, and we did use a book to get most of our source materials, but if you hadn't read the book, you could still join the discussion because there's tons of podcasts out there about him. He's a newer case, so there aren't any documentaries yet, but I'm sure there will be. So having said that, we'd like to just kind of show you how we're going to run this group in the future.
Megan, do you have the book that you based this club on?
Oh, Sherry does.
Sherry?
I do. Look how creepy his eyes look at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
American Predator.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's read it?
Yeah, I've read it.
Let's get that book back up there again so we can give Maureen Callahan her dues. She's an investigative journalist, and so I think that really comes through in her writing style.
Yeah. And for me, what I liked about the book is it was almost a pure procedural, and I really enjoy procedurals. So I like that when you go through it, you go through it as it's unfolded for them, and that's really interesting to me. And then in addition to that, I like how she really describes every law enforcement officer. You can see them, you can imagine them. And so I really enjoyed that. But it's the first book I've read about Israel Keys. I've only listened to podcasts and watched videos. I don't know if there's another one out there.
I think it might be the only book about him, just because it's such a new case. But I really liked it because clearly the author did a ton of research, and at the same time, there's so much information missing about him because he just didn't give the police hardly anything about these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they know that he murdered at least 11 people, but they only know for sure 3 of them, I think it is, the Samantha Koenig and the couple in Vermont. And I think that's the only people they know for sure that he murdered.
Sure. Those are the only ones that he confessed by name. I did those. You're exactly right. And just beyond the fact of, like you said, all the research she did, Megan and I were discussing it shortly after I finished it. And I was, of course, read from beginning to end, so all the way through the epilogue. And in the epilogue, it says they had to do some court actions that took over a year for her to obtain some of the information that she had in the book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that there are currently 45,000 pages of his case file that are unreleased due to national security.
Oh man, I would love to read that.
Right? Like, what is it?
So how about we, for anyone who's completely unfamiliar with Israel Keys, let's take it from the top and just give a really brief summary of what happened. Started in Alaska.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the case, right? It kind of starts at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
The last murder he committed, where he got sloppy.
Yes. So he kidnapped and murdered a teenager from a coffee stand in Alaska, and when he was caught, that's when a lot of disturbing information started coming out, and at his own offering. So we learned through his interrogations. We learned about a couple in Vermont.
Yeah.
We learned about some of his his techniques, like what did he do?
Mm-hmm.
Don't make that face, Sherry.
Yeah, and the only reason he got caught is because he got sloppy. He asked for a ransom for this poor girl and then started using her debit card, which probably shouldn't do if you're a serial killer, but he got sloppy, I guess. So he started using her credit card, and then his car got caught on one of the bank security cameras, and they just happened to pull him over because he was speeding. And then they had probable cause to search his car, and they found her debit card and everything. So it's just, the whole thing is really scary. I find this guy terrifying.
It's also interesting that for someone who was so meticulous, he revealed to police that he would bury kill kits like all over the country. I mean, we don't know if this is necessarily true because we haven't, they haven't found any, but he.
Oh, actually, Megan, let me interject real quick. The
Yes,
FBI,
please.
I was looking at their website. They've released video of his interviews. They've released pictures of the kill kits.
Oh.
So there's a whole bunch of information. If you go on the FBI's website, you can see like his suicide note and all pictures of the kill kits and all this stuff. It's pretty great.
Thank you,
But
Shannon.
they probably still haven't found most of the kill kits. So.
Well, and so that's why his getting caught is so strange, because he traveled the country. He had no type. He didn't care, it seems.
This guy had
like
no victim type.
He had no victim type. And he prepared so diligently for these, having his kill kits. What, they had money, they had weapons, they had cleanup stuff. Like, he was ready to go wherever he went if he felt like it. And then to do something like get caught with a debit card.
Agreed. Part of me thinks that either he became so full of himself he thought he couldn't get caught, or how can you be that smart and do something that asinine? So it's just tired. I think he's tired.
Lifestyle.
He's tired of killing people. I don't know. I don't know. But that was bizarre to me, that he would use that ATM that many times, the debit card that many times. And after he was so meticulous in so many other ways, that is one of the things that makes you go, did he do it on purpose? Did he just want to start talking? What? I don't know.
See, I don't know, because I was doing research, but he did say that if they hadn't caught him, he would have kept kidnapping people. So I think part of it is maybe he just got like so in his head, like that he's so powerful he'll never be caught, and so
I agree.
I
agree.
So, as most people who follow true crime, we kind of know that there's a couple of different things that that tend to be present in people's lives who go on to commit these crimes. Head injuries and unstable home lives and that kind of stuff. Any boxes? Does he tick any of these boxes? I mean, I think kind of living in a cult.
Yeah, he was like in a cult. He lived in a cabin with no electricity with his parents when he was a child.
Yeah.
Not a great environment.
No, his parents were basically those isolationist type people, and it looks like they attached to any form of organization that supported that. Because when he was young, they lived isolated. His dad had bought that area, and that he was building a house, and they were living, in like tents and stuff. And then they end up, where is it Idaho or Utah, where they end up with the militia-ist group, where he gets those associations with, is it Chevy and Shane Kehoe? Is it Shane Kehoe that he had been convicted of murdering a woman and her daughter, and he's loosely associated with the Oklahoma City bombing, and so that was really weird. And they were friends growing up with these kids. Those were the people that he ran around with, till he was like 14, until they moved again, and then they joined like an Amish-like community. And so he has been very isolated, and just him and his family, mostly, other than the two boys that he was friends with from the militia group. I mean, those are your childhood friends, the militia group people,
The other murderers.
Right. The other murderers? Yeah. So for me, I think some of it is the way he was brought up, but the other part is when the one of the interesting things about this book despite all the podcasts that I've listened to, and you can hear him talk, and you can hear what he has to say about himself on the in the book, as opposed to not as much in the recordings that are published for the podcast. He talks about, I've been two different people for 14 years, so he's conscious of something, you know what I mean? So I know he knows that what he's doing is wrong, and he's separated it somehow, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it's a case of he grew up that way, because also when people talk about him, they're like, he's always weird, you know what I mean? Like, he was always different. And so I don't know if he was just born that way, or if it was a case of nurture, or if it was just a perfect little pot of everything.
Well, so his two different lives. Israel Keys had, was he actually married? Was he married, or did he just, he was married and he had a daughter. And that really, and that relationship with his child, it plays, really plays into, you know, how his story ended. And he, you know, if you read the interviews or listen to the interviews, he really, a lot of his demands of the police and prosecutors stems from like not wanting his daughter to know about his other life.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the demands, did you read you're familiar with the demands that he had, Shannon, right? Like he wanted the death penalty. He wanted, and he wanted a date. He was like, make me an appointment for the electric chair.
He wanted it soon.
Yes, yes. And he would only give more if he could have it in writing that he would be executed. And in a timely manner, not forever.
But he still didn't want to give up everything. He wanted to be executed based on the things that he was willing to share.
Right.
And because that was the other thing, you know, he didn't want it drawn out. He didn't want there to be tons of media. He didn't want his daughter to, after he was gone, be able to find all the details. So he wasn't giving up everything, but you know, he was giving up just enough to guarantee an execution.
I say he got what he wanted, because as much as we know in that book that we only know what he told us. We only know really what he told us. And the timelines. Can you imagine what it would be like to be a forensic investigator, to pick apart his timelines? And, you know, have you ever seen, Shannon, you said you've done the research on, I went on the FBI. Have you ever seen some of the crazy maps they have with the timelines of, he was in Belize and he was in this country? And
on the FBI website, they have the whole timeline written out with like a map and everything, and it's crazy. He went like out of the country. He could have murdered people out of the country. I'm kind of segueing into, I think, another topic, but they think he murdered 11. I personally think it's more than that, because he planned it so meticulously. He would bury kill kits 2 years before he'd ever use them. And he went out of the country a whole bunch. Like, he had to be doing stuff out, like murdering people in other countries, because it's not as easy to track. He had to have been.
Yeah. And I heard on another podcast, I want to say it's the deep dive with the True Crime Bull stuff. They talk about that he had multiple passports with different that were fake. They were fake passports. But it was really interesting to me, like, how did he acquire that and what did he get? And even when he dies, he kills himself. He writes Belize on the wall. Like, who does that?
So yeah, this case is it's very twisty. It's I think in some ways unsatisfying, because there was never a trial. He died before he could be tried and executed, and he took his secrets to the grave. But I feel like he gave us enough like hints to know, you know, like, oh, Canadians don't count.
Oh,
what does that mean, Israel? That means you were in Canada up to your killing. I think the other thing that I found really interesting in this book was the revelation of his multiple surgeries that he would have in other countries.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Like, why did a fit? He wasn't. Why was a 6 foot something, 200 pound fit man? Why did he need a lap band?
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
Probably so he could drive farther on his various like across the country road trips and kill
That's
more
the
people.
theory. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, but how did Maureen Callahan say? I feel like she said it some really interesting.
Biohacking. He's
Biohacking.
biohacking.
Was he biohacking himself
No.
to become an even more perfect killer?
Right. I don't know if this was true, but I think I read somewhere that they thought maybe he might have gotten like his fingerprints removed or
Yes.
something.
I think that is something in the book. Yes, there, and he had a lot of dental work done. Was he changing out his teeth so his he
I don't
couldn't
know.
be identified by dental records?
Yeah. The thing for me that was weird about the surgeries too was he would drive to Mexico from Alaska to get his. Who does that? You're
Like
obviously
long
doing
drive.
something in secret. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want people to know you've had these surgeries. Yeah.
Well, didn't he say he was on like work trips sometimes when he would do these long drives?
I don't know.
That's something I vaguely remember. It's
Yeah.
been a while since I read the book.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, but see, look, if the story sticks with you, you don't have to have read the book
Right.
yesterday to be
Right.
able to have a conversation. And that's kind of where we're going with this discussion group. So, have also started a Riverinos Facebook group, and it's attached to the Rocky River Public Library Facebook group. We will be adding all of the Israel Keys content, and I had already created a document with a bunch of Israel Keys things, but I'm going to go back and edit it with the links to the FBI, because that's something that I hadn't thought of. So you can do a deep dive into Israel Keys on your own with either the book. There are links to about 4 or 5 different podcasts. Some of them just mention him. Some of them, devote 3 or 4 episodes to diving into the materials. You can get lost on the FBI page, and you can also wonder what's in the 45,000 pages that we're not seeing. So the next book that we're going to talk about in September, and the September meeting will be one that we are inviting all of you to join us. We'll set up a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and we'll chat like this again. But we're going to be bringing it back to the Cleveland area, and we're going to talk about True Crime Addict by James Renner, and that is his take on the disappearance of Maura Murray, and it's really timely. One of the reasons we picked this is because there had been, the rumor mill and all the armchair sleuths are maybe speculating that Israel Keys might be responsible for her disappearance.
Really?
So that was the reason I wanted to segue into this one. But now, is it HBO? The
Oxygen Channel. I'm sorry.
Oxygen Channel has just released a 6-part series on the disappearance of Maura Murray, and their take is quite different from James Renner's take. So I'm actually really excited about how this all just like fell together. So the library will have copies of the book, and again, we'll put together some information on the Riverinos group page for other sources on the Maura Murray case. That one is bonkers. You're going to go into a rabbit hole on that one for sure. So
yeah. And I do believe there's one episode that I know that was loaded for content was there's one episode of a podcast, Missy Maura Murray, and they discuss the theory of Israel Keys. For me personally, I don't know, but I can understand why people connect it, because like no one knows what happened to her. She literally just vanished off the face of the earth. No one can figure it out.
Alert.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And it's still called Missy Maura Murray, this far along, so she's still missing. But I think they like to connect him because you know, he's become this person, this monster that just can snatch you in the night and no one knows where you'll be forever. And I think that's why people who follow these things are driven to connect the two, because people are attracted to this type of subject matter for different reasons. And for me, I like justice and resolution. And that's kind of why I don't like how this all ends, because I feel like there is no justice, there is no resolution, you know?
You're really going to hate this next one then.
Right? And I think that that's just a form of them trying to have some sort of resolution, to have some sort of justice, you know. It's like, well, he did it, you know. And yeah, she's right, that's a rabbit hole. But I could see why anybody who turned up missing anywhere in the history of the United States, people would go, well, it probably was Israel Keys.
Right.
I mean, just turn to the end of Maureen Callahan's book, and she lists his top states. And as I'm reading, I'm like, when is the list going to end? He's basically been
everywhere,
including Ohio, including Cleveland. They do believe that he has been in Cleveland. So,
oh man,
yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
Oh, you guys, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate having Shannon as a guest, and I love what we're doing here. So I hope that you will join us, and I hope that Shannon will be a regular.
I would love
discusser with us, because this was great.
Thank you, everybody, for joining our Riverinos true crime case study discussion. Remember, you don't have to read the book. You can listen to podcasts, whatever. But hopefully we'll see you next time at Rocky River Public Library.
Thanks, everyone.